Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Simply ICS Cyber podcast. I'm Don C. Weber, the cybersecurity guy.
And I'm Tom Van Norman, the ICS guy. And today we have Mike Holcomb from Floor Daniels. No, actually, let's do that again because it's not Daniels. We just talked about that. But since we're only 30 seconds into this, let's start that over again, Don.
What?
Yes.
No, we have to do the whole. We have to start it over
23
again.
seconds. It's fine. We don't want to
No,
strip
no, I
far
can't.
into it.
Hang on, let's see if I can hit the intro again. I don't know that I can do that. Move intro. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Simply ICS Cyber Podcast. I'm Don C. Weber. I'm the cybersecurity guy.
And I'm Tom Van Norman, the ICS guy. And today we have Mike Holcomb from Floor that's going to talk to us about some TSA initiatives. And Mike, want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Thanks, Don. Good seeing you guys, and I appreciate the invite to come share with everybody. But yeah, my name's Mike Holcomb. Like Tom mentioned, I am the Floor Fellow for Cybersecurity. At Floor Corporation, we're one of the world's largest engineering companies in the world. So we get to design and build some of the world's largest ICS OT environments, from power plants to LNG facilities, and we run railways, and that is part of what comes into play with the conversation today.
Awesome. Hey, Mike, it's great to see you. It's last time I saw you was at S4. I know you're hitting the conferences and online, so it's great to see all of your posts. I've been slacking the last couple of weeks. I've been traveling around, but it's certainly I'm glad you agreed to talk about this because my whole intent about this is while I do understand a little bit about TSA and TSA directives. It kind of popped up. Obviously, when Colonial Pipeline happened, a lot of people got worried. They noticed, like, hey, the pipelines are an issue. Oh my gosh, we have ransomware in there. They're attacking us. They're trying to knock down our critical infrastructure. And while it was an attack, on a company, it really didn't bring any, the result wasn't necessarily an attack on the actual critical infrastructure itself. It was just the result of the consequences of the other things. But the industry saw the TSA kind of step in. For those of us that were involved with it, it really kind of went through the starting process was really a knee-jerk reaction. They're like, oh my gosh, we have to apply all these IT cybersecurity considerations on the ICS environments. They have to change passwords on a regular basis, and they need to start updating things, and we need to get regular reports because everybody's trying to bring down our critical infrastructure. And then the industry inform them that, hey, you don't understand our operational requirements. We have constant rollover, so changing passwords on every single device as soon as somebody leaves is not really actionable of a requirement, and it's not getting you the results that you want. But so that was a couple years ago. Now, it's we know that things have started changing. But what I don't think is that people necessarily understand the full scope. Like, why is TSA involved? Why are they putting out directives around critical infrastructure? Because they're transportation. Is it transportation safety or security? I can't remember. But why is TSA involved in all of this?
Yeah, it was a good question, and I think when you first saw those requirements come out, it was like, what? The TSA, right? It's the people that it sounds horrible, but they're the security guards at the airports for us, right? That's, I think, typically what we associate with the TSA, right? I go through the long line, at the airport to have them look through my luggage for, my, deodorant that's 3.5 ounces. They want to take it away, that type. And I appreciate all the work that they do, but that, that's, I think, the kind of the
That's the
concept
face,
they have
right?
in
That's
mind.
that's that's the
Yeah,
face of them
and
to the public.
exactly. So when all of a sudden the TSA is saying, well, we're going to have this security directive that's going to oversee cybersecurity over pipelines and pipeline operators, it was like, huh? and but then when you think about it, it is interstate transportation, or almost travel, like transportation of goods, if you want to think of it that way. It's just the goods are usually hazardous chemicals or gas, and so, and that's where they got into to play initially, after you mentioned the Colonial Pipeline, right? We just hit the 4-year anniversary 2 days ago, and so they wanted to come in and do something about security in pipelines. And then they also realized, well, what if we did lose our pipelines again, right? So if Colonial Pipeline goes down and that feeds gas to 70% of the East Coast, then if it goes down again, right, the only backup to actually being able to move gas or other types of volumes of liquid or gas like that would be train. And so they said, "Oh, okay, well, we'll cover pipelines and we'll go ahead and we'll cover trains." So, they said, "We'll cover freight trains." And then they're, "Oh, well, since we're covering freight trains, we're going to go ahead and cover passenger trains as well." So, which is great, but it's like they have multiple what they call security directives, or if you want, kind of like these policies that you have to follow if you're an operator for either pipelines or freight or passenger rail. And if you read each of the individual documents, they're almost exactly the same word for word. It just kind of was. I think they were trying to get that out pretty quickly, which I appreciate,
Mm.
from that perspective, right? Trying to do something about security in these environments that have been vastly overlooked, like many other areas in the OT world, like manufacturing and food and agriculture.
So, Mike, we talk about Colonial Pipeline, and then as a result of that incident, TSA comes out with a cyber. Was it a directive, or was it what are they? Are they directives? Are they white paper suggestions? Are they regulation? What is the thing that they put out?
They are officially called security directives. And so from a operator or owner perspective, they they are law. So you still do
Okay.
have to follow these. There could be repercussions. People could potentially, not only could there be fines, but somebody could go to jail potentially. I don't, think any of that is even come close to happening. But I think they're still, in some respects, still in their infancy, even though it's been 4 years since Colonial Pipeline and about 3.5 years since these started.
I remember when the Rev A, would it be the first Rev of the pipeline came out? It was all over the place, and there's a lot of people in industry up in arms because either they weren't asked, or they thought they asked the right or the wrong people, and you
Right.
know it went into immediately to Rev 2. What do you think about it now? Is it something that's beneficial? Is it something that can be easily followed?
There are some things that I like about it. There's some things I absolutely or love about it, actually. So when you look at, especially with Colonial Pipeline, right, the idea is, right, we weren't worried now about state adversaries. It was ransomware operators that were compromising the IT environment, and then that was moving into OT, and we're shutting down OT. Or like a lot of environments, right? IT becomes compromised. OT relies on systems in the IT network, and then your plant or your pipeline or your train, right, has to be taken offline. And so for me, I've always appreciated, and I understand I'm very lucky because I work in mostly new environments in my day job. So we're building everything from the ground up. So the whole point for we're building resilient OT or ICS network. So if you had a ransomware infection on the IT network and the entire IT network burns down, you know what? That's okay from an OT perspective. We're still up and running, right? 24/7, 365. And so they actually did a really good job of highlighting this idea of resiliency. So, making sure that your OT environment, in this case, your pipeline or your trains, can continue to run even if your OT or your IT network goes down, right? Which I think is great. So that I think that was definitely a big plus. But what's that?
Yeah, so I mean, my kind of claim to this part is that I had basically the majority of the TSA auditors right after the event come through. I think the auditors were more of the check the box kind of IT style, and they quickly realized that they didn't have any OT training, and so they were sending them basically all of their auditors got crash courses. They had gone through a couple different 62443 classes. They really actually at that time when they came through, my class had a course fatigue. They were doing the SANS ICS 410 class after their
Yeah.
62443, after their Security Plus, and some networking classes. So that was kind of interesting seeing that, and that kind of like helped me understand why some of the requirements at the very beginning were unapplicable within the control environments. But it was good that they after the training and kind of cleared some of that up. um,
Yeah.
from a train standpoint, back then, I guess like 2 years after that, I think New Palestine happened. So, did
Yeah.
the events, did that event have any role in kind of like the direction of TSA towards that? And would that have improved those types of issues that happened with that tragic event?
No, it's a great question. And when the New Palestine incident happened and they had the train derailment, I mean, that was basically due to lack of proper maintenance, right? And the train
Mhm.
derailed and carrying hazardous chemicals, and then you have this mushroom cloud over the city, right? Which is um, yeah, uh, concerning to see the least, and seeing some of that initial devastation that they had out there. It does speak to there are controls in the train world in the United States. We have what they call PTC, or positive train control.
Mhm.
So it's in place to help trains and the engineers running the train to understand if the train ever comes up into a dangerous condition, right? So it's designed to help prevent different types of incidents that have occurred in the past, like train collisions or having a train derail, right? Again, that's more using the data and the information it has, right? If the train's going too fast down a slight slope and there's a corner coming up, the train can tell the engineer you need to slow down. And then if the engineer's not responding, then the PTC will actually slow down the train for them. But it wouldn't accommodate it. Unfortunately, like with the Palestinian the incident, that was just an unfortunate lack of
Mhm.
maintenance, and I think a lot of people, um, not paying attention to what they needed to be. Yeah, unfortunately, but it does highlight PTC, and that it does a good job of highlighting, you know, the you talked about the newer revisions, right? Not the initial revision, just had like 4 or 5 main requirements, and some were really good, some were, and some were almost inconsequential, like just reporting requirements, right, to CISA, right? So if you had an incident, then you would report to CISA. Now, there's questions still even today, like what constitutes an incident, and they want you whether it's in IT or OT. So even if you had a simple malware infection in IT, uh, you're technically responsible for reporting that to CISA within 24 hours, right? So you can take that for what you will. But when they do a really good job in the later version of highlighting And they do talk about performing vulnerability assessments, but really what they're talking about is, if you actually read what they're asking for, they're really talking about conducting a risk assessment, right? Which is really core in when we're talking about protecting OT environments, whether we're talking about the 62443 standard or not, right? But being able to look in the environment, and sure, we can look at what vulnerabilities actually exist on what systems we have, but it's really about looking for just overall gaps in the security program, and then identifying the controls that we can apply to protect them. And then they also do a really good job of saying that you also need to look in both IT and OT to identify those critical cyber systems, right? That you need to be able to run your pipeline, or you need to run your trains on time, but also, right, keeping everybody safe. And so I think they
And
did it.
that, and I'm sorry, Tom, I'm going to jump in here, but because we're learning a lot and I imagine you're watching what's going on in Europe really closely. The stuff that's going on the between Russia and Ukraine, but also all up and down um, that front, because they the things like payment systems, people being able to buy tickets, just not being
Mhm.
able to
Right.
buy tickets, we're shutting some of the trains down. So how are you seeing this? Is this actually helping helping organizations prepare for those types of correlations and cascading effects?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just one of those, like, I hate to say it, yeah, I hate to be that person, but I'm a big fan of regulation, because I'm a old school IT cyber person. Like, I've been doing IT cyber 30 plus years. So I remember the days of screaming into the void saying, we have to do something about cybersecurity or we're going to get hacked, right? And bad things are going to happen. But not until bad things happen, like the Target breach, right? Then all of a sudden, businesses, at least in the United States and around the world, started to realize, oh, we need to start doing something about cyber, right? And that Colonial Pipeline was like that for the OT world. But without regulation, right? Are most owners and operators out there going to do about something about cyber? Unfortunately, it's not guaranteed, right? We've come a long way in the last 4 years, for sure. I think almost all the owners and operators understand it needs to at least be on the to-do list, but there's still a lot of environments out there, that aren't doing, they're not getting the job done for many reasons, right? And they don't have the resources, and they're small shops, and I get that, but with pipelines, with rail, there were so many of these environments out there that cybersecurity was just never on their radar. So now all of a sudden you had these TSA requirements for the security directives saying you need to do, and it was kind of nice. That first version, it's like, here are these 5, 6, 4, 5, 6 things that you need to do. Like, have somebody responsible for incident response planning. Have an incident response, right? Test your incident response plan with tabletops at least once a year, right? So the absolute, you know, kind of bare minimums that we would want, but it was a start for the vast majority of these environments that weren't doing anything to begin with, right? And then, and as you're mentioning that, over time, right, and they make updates and they renew the security directives every year. And so they did come out with the additional guidance, and they actually went a lot deeper. So instead of, yes, there's like two main requirements, but each of those main requirements has multiple sections. And then in each of those sections, there's like 5, 6, 7 bullet points where you need to adhere to. So they do things like they require network segmentation, and very detailed network segmentation. And it's not just put a firewall between IT and OT to keep ransomware out of OT, but it's looking at network segmentation within the OT network and fully documenting, right? Along the lines of 62443, right? We have our assets and the network itself broken into zones. And we have all the communication, or those conduits, right? What communication is required between those zones? And are we appropriately, having at least ACLs off to restrict the traffic as much as possible? So they did a really good job with those aspects,
Good.
right? Where you don't often say, I also, do site consulting work and go into environments from a couple million to 500 million, and you know a lot of those environments don't have segmentation or very little. So, and they even have requirements for things like network security monitoring, which you don't see in the vast majority of organizations out there. So, I think, kind of like you were mentioning earlier, there's a lot of good intent, and like with regulation, right? It's at the end of the day, it's written by the politicians and their teams, right? And probably some lobbyists thrown in there at the same time. So there's the good and the bad with it. But I think overall, actually, I think for what they have in the security directives, they did a pretty good job. There's nothing like horrible, other than they do take kind of like the IT approach to patching. So it's more, we take the risk-based approach, right? And if there's a patch, you have an SLA and you need to patch and reboot within a certain amount of time. And that's right, not the approach that we take in the OT world, right? We want to, yes, look at the risk that's involved, but actually make a conscious, decision of, you know, do we need to even address this vulnerability? Maybe not. And so thankfully, actually, there is a provision in there that if you're not taking action, that if you can explain it, then the TSA could take that as like, okay, we can understand, you're not taking action because you have, let's say, these compensating controls in place. Right. So if you can look at demonstrating that you've addressed the risk or lowered that risk within an acceptable threshold, that I think the TSA would determine whether it's acceptable or not, but you have that as an option, which is good.
Mike, when this came out, how long did asset owners have to implement it?
That's a good question. Now I'm trying to remember. I want to say, and I remember because I had a couple projects that fell under this. I want to say there was 6 months to a year.
Okay,
Boy,
so
it's been a couple years.
so yeah, I'd have to assume that the asset owners were doing something already. They probably weren't doing everything in the directive, but they had to be doing something. And now they hit with this directive that makes them do more. Did the directive come with funding? Do you know? Do you recall?
No, no. Like a lot of regulation, unfortunately, and that kind of was and that's one of the biggest challenges, right? Is with any regulation, and then when you talk about OT, kind of like we're mentioning, and even you go into a lot of rail shop. Yeah, there's a couple of big rail providers out there, like Union Pacific, right? You think, or an Amtrak. But a lot of it go to like a smaller U.S. city that might have so a couple of subway lines, right? They are running a very tight ship, right? There is very little budget there, right? And it's kind of the typical OT shop, mom and pop shop, where they don't have somebody dedicated to OT cybersecurity, right? They might not even have anybody dedicated to IT cybersecurity. Now,
Yep.
they have to now, right? So they've been working on hiring, but yeah, it's a challenge for a lot of these environments. Unfortunately, I think they still definitely struggle to get people in those roles. It's a very different world. I think the awareness is there. They understand the need now, but it's actually like getting the job done and finding the right people to get the job done. Because it's just, there's not a lot of people out there that have experience doing OT cybersecurity in rail and pipelines, because we haven't been doing OT
Yep.
cybersecurity in pipelines and
And
rail.
the requirement is that they have a bachelor's or a master's degree. They've got 10 years of experience in cybersecurity. They've got 8 years of experience in rail, right?
Right? You have to have your CISSP, right?
Oh,
Yep.
CISSP. Yes.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, it's, I get to do a lot of, I've been helping with a lot of interviews for a couple of these projects. And it's great to be able to, yeah, circumvent a lot of that garbage HR requirement. Just, because somebody in HR just doesn't realize what they're asking for. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's great to have there's a lot of really good candidates out there that have real world experience, even if it's, on an offshore oil rig, right? Or if it was in the Navy and they're a nuke, running a nuclear power plant on a submarine, or they have that OT background. Maybe it's not in rail or a pipeline, but you have that OT or that ICS experience, and you can easily take that and translate that into a pipeline or into a rail environment. They're not that complicated. Sense.
The imagine the geographical separation of everything's does not make things easier, right? So rail and pipeline, you go hundreds and hundreds of miles,
For
and
sure.
to talk about network segmentation, when you go to that pumping station or that way hut there, it might be only 3 devices in there. It might be very limited
Mhm.
devices. How do you
Yeah.
segment that network? There's only 3 devices, and they all have to talk to each other, right? You have a PLC, you have an HMI, and you have I don't know, a
Communication
transmitter.
gateway.
Yeah, it's
Right,
a
there's some
firewall or
communication
something.
gear, there's some managed or unmanaged switch that's sitting in there in like a little house that, little shack that might or might not be locked. I mean,
Yeah,
it's there's
but I mean that's the reality of it, right? And then if you throw
oh, absolutely.
a door reader on the front door to get in, well, that's going to be some kind of network also. Do you run that across the ICS network to go back, or do you have to run a new fiber or another radio or something? So
So,
I get it. You want to put that door reader on that same network and get that information back, because to string a new fiber, if you're all out of fiber or radios, expensive and complicated. And why not use the same network that you have already and filter it out somehow?
yeah, or the worst I've seen is you go like to one of these little shacks in the middle of the nowhere, and it's not like there's not even a badge reader, there's not even a lock on the door, right? Or if there
But
is, it's not locked because
there's
like,
also
oh,
no
we're out in the
people.
middle of yeah,
There's
exactly.
also
We're
no
out in
people,
the
Mike.
middle of nowhere, right? Oh, I
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
right. But yeah, they're like, nobody's gonna come, out here and screw with the equipment. Like, yeah, no, they will. And it's one of those, right? They learn the hard way, right? Even if it's just somebody coming out there to steal copper and ripping out all the lines.
I got the opportunity to talk to one of my clients the other day, and they do pipeline work in West Virginia, and
Yeah,
we're just sharing war stories. And one of the things that he says, it's where their control cabinets are, it's an hour and a half in either direction to get to a town. It's in the
yeah,
middle of nowhere. And
right. Yeah,
he
I've
said
been
if
there.
there's somebody there, there's nobody supposed to be there, right? If somebody's there, they're not doing something good. But the problem is, it's literally an hour and a half in either direction to get to a town.
Oh,
Uh,
for sure. Yeah, I've been some of those places. I always wherever I am at, I always look. I pull up like Waze and look to see where the nearest Starbucks is, and that'll show me like how close am I to civilizations. And if I see like 300 miles, I'm like, yeah, I have a little trouble. I hope nothing bad happens out here.
Well, Mike, we're coming up on the kind of end of the show. I really appreciate it. It sounds to me, just the quick summarization. It was well, all of this started as a knee-jerk reaction. Certainly, just like a lot of regulatory efforts. It quickly evolved. We've got people that are really invested in this. They're actually trying to improve the situation, and it's slowly starting to improve even while it's going into the new industry. So I really appreciate that input there. Letting us know that while these requirements are a challenge, especially for some organizations that aren't ready for it, but it is being effective, and it's helping people to justify looking at it and addressing some of the issues in our critical infrastructure day to day. So I really appreciate you doing that. Where, you're out there a lot, putting out, doing a lot for the industry. Tom and I really appreciate that. So tell us what you're doing personally, and and where you're involved. Where can
Yeah,
people find
well, yeah, probably a big one. We started B-Sides ICS this year, which I was really
you?
excited about, so we could, pretty much bring ICS and OT cyber to the masses at the conference level, and you don't have to spend, $2,000 plus to go. So we had a great event, and been talking with folks about, they're looking at spinning that up around the different places around the world, just like, kind of the IT B-sides. So check out bsidesics.org for more on that. And then I do post content on LinkedIn every day at 11 o'clock Eastern. So you just look Mike Holcomb on LinkedIn. So for folks who want to reach out and connect, definitely feel free to reach out anytime. And then also have a couple of courses. There's actually a 26-hour course on how to get started in OT, ICS, cybersecurity on YouTube that everybody can take for free. And there's a lab manual, and there's lots of other materials that go with it, but you can find that on YouTube. So if you look for Mike Holcomb, or it's Utilsec, so UTILSEC, so like utility security basically. So, but those are the best places to find me. I'm always on LinkedIn. So
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate it. And Tom, any last minute thoughts?
The Mike, where's the next place people can see you?
let's see. Next week, I think 2 weeks. Next week we're doing a online virtual conference with Industrial Cyber that's focused on manufacturing, which is really exciting. But it's for the community, and it's very low cost. It just covers the cost of the conference. And then the week after that, I'll be at Intelec, ENTELEC. So it's actually 100-year-old conference for energy. I don't know if you guys have been there. So that was really exciting when I saw it was 100 years old. And then of course the SANS ICS Summit in June, which I'm really excited for the 20th anniversary. And I was able to trick them into letting me speak again. so I'm excited
Nice.
about that. So that's I really happy to get to do that and just see everybody. It's besides B-sides, it's always my favorite ICS OT cybersecurity conference.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We've got a bunch of different workshops. I'm actually, while I'm out here in London, writing the OSINT workshop right now. So we should see that.
Yeah, you probably have a couple of workshops. Yeah, we met at I think the one last year. Yeah, for the first time. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember which one I got COVID at, but
Oh,
so
I got
yeah.
COVID at Bryson's last year. So
Ooh, yeah. So Tom, where can we see you at next, Tom?
The next week I'll be at a conference in Louisville, Kentucky called JETC. And then after that, the conference that was formerly Hack the Capitol, now it's Critical Effect. That's ICS Village's conference. We'll be holding that in June.
yeah,
Excellent.
I
Yeah, and
was
then
gonna go, but it's like 2 days before the SANS ICS Summit.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh yeah,
yeah,
I get
and
it.
I'm doing
Get it.
Yeah, and that's what I'm doing. I got to do the stuff for this ICS Summit, and then going straight from there to NRECA out in Denver.
I'll be there with you.
To help support Carter and talk about a few things out there. We actually have to set some stuff up for that, Tom, but we'll get there. Other than that, hey Mike, I really appreciate you doing this, jumping on here.
Thanks for asking.
Yes, absolutely. I know we'll see you all next time. So everybody have a great day, and we will talk to you soon.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.